I think more than anything before, the image of little Aylan Kurdi lying lifeless on the shore has stung us all into action about the mass exodus of people from conflicts in the Middle East and North Africa. Joining me on Late Lunch now to talk about what's happening and what should be done is Dr. Fatima Hamrouche. She's a consultant ophthalmologist at Our Lady of Lourdes Hospital and former Minister of Health in the Libyan Transitional Government. Fatima, it's very good to see you again. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for inviting me.
Why has it taken the image of this little boy to shake us?
I think everybody was trying to shy away from the reality. There have been many other little boys with the same images, but this one has been captured in an awful circumstances, really, along with the way the bodies we were seeing on the Mediterranean, the Hungarian borders, how the immigrants were treated and pushed away out of the borders and all that. So that image was just the tip of the iceberg, basically, and it's just people couldn't take it anymore. It's a shocking image, but it's not the first and not even the last with what we're seeing now.
Lots of other little boys and girls, people of all ages, ending up the same way, losing their lives, but this one has struck a particular chord. You mentioned a word to me there, and I want to throw it in straight away before we came on air. You compare this to the Holocaust.
Yes. All what's missing is the gas chambers in what's going on here. Look, there is a mass exodus of these poor people, innocent civilians from their own homeland, kicked away or running away from fearing being murdered, fearing being raped or given as slaves to the ISIL or ISIS, whatever people may call it. They are fleeing death to an uncertain future or uncertain fate, basically. For them, they either die in the sea or die at the borders, but it's a hope, which for us here looking at that, you can't even imagine yourself hoping to live in that way or fleeing death by going to a future that you don't even know what's going to happen to you. Like, see, what's going on in the Middle East is a frightening situation. We were all happy initially that there is an Arab Spring and all that, and everybody was hoping for the best. I am one of the people who wanted a change, but I now believe that change has never been achieved. And in fact, I keep talking about, when I say conspiracy, people start saying, here we go now, she's talking about conspiracy theory. No, we're not talking about theory. We are talking about a fact with proof, and like a theory is no longer a theory if you have what proves it's a truth, all right? This is true. What has happened is to destroy the Middle East completely, to create a new map for the area, and that's what's happening now.
And who's behind this?
See, if the Middle East wasn't a wealthy place, do you think this would have happened? There is a lot of, I believe, greed behind all this.
Is it greed from outside
yes.
the Arab and Middle Eastern world? Is that what's driving this? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, yes. And it's been proved by many. Like, look at Libya, for example. Let me bring you my country, because that's what I know very well, okay? When we started the Arab Spring, or when we were part of the revolution, we wanted just a change of what's going on there to a better future. What happened just after that, and I talk about my part as a minister when I was there, I was shocked by the number of foreign companies coming to meet me to get whatever they could get from just deals at the time where the country couldn't afford making new deals. That's one thing. The other thing, the intelligence, foreign intelligence on our land was more active than the Libyan intelligence. Add to that, which is even worse, the Islamic, what you call them, now we call them terrorists, but whatever you may call them, the
ISIS people.
Or Qaeda, former Qaeda people.
Yeah.
They were flourishing in our land. People initially were sympathizing with them because Gaddafi put them in jail. Now we all see that he did the right thing, but we didn't know about it at the time. When he came out on TV and said, You are going to be governed by ISIL. But he didn't mention ISIL, sorry, he mentioned Qaeda. You're going to be governed by Qaeda. These will rule you. These will take your women as slaves. We all laughed at him and said, what the hell he's talking about? He's not saying anything true. Now we're seeing it with our own eyes. In Libya, there are towns that have been completely taken over by what now it's called ISIL. And mind you, what's happening in Libya, what we call ISIL Libya, is different from what's happening in Iraq and the Levant area.
But explain this to me. If you take IS and what they want to do, they want to create a caliphate, right, in the Middle East there, starting with Syria and pushing out from there. How would Western interests back that when at the same time they're determined to destroy Western interests? They say this. They say, the terrorist attacks, they'll cause destruction in the wider part of the world, in Europe, for example. How does that, make sense, Fatima?
Well, before I proceed with this, let me explain one thing. I'm not accusing the Western people
to be... I understand that. I understand that.
I am living here 20 years, and I really feel the Irish are excellent people, and likewise with other countries. But I'm talking about certain politicians who are running this, okay?
So there's a disconnect. Let me say this. I've read Robert Fisk today writing about this, and he talks about this, the disconnect between our political and ruling classes and the people.
Yes, and I respect Robert Fisk. Robert Fisk is one of those who know very well what he's talking about. So really, really, I met him as well, and what he says reflects truth 100% in the Middle East. There is a huge difference between people and politicians. And even politicians, not all of them would be as bad as others, but there are good politicians. But they believe, and a lot of them believe, that for the best interest of the country, you can do anything, which is not a real thing. Because look at what happened to this kid lying on the shore. It touched all of us, really, deep down in the bottom of our hearts.
As human beings.
As human beings, yeah.
You've explained that well. Let me move on a moment. This mass exodus of people, we hear there are 800,000 people massing on boulders at the moment, looking to get away from death. You're right, it is from death. That's what they are facing. Should Europe, including Ireland where we sit today, be doing more to take more refugees in? I see our government has mentioned another paltry figure today of 1,600. They were talking about 600. Should we, the UK, Germany are doing an awful lot. I recognise that. Should we be doing more to take in people?
See, these people want their own homeland. They don't want to be anywhere but their own houses in their own homeland.
They don't want peace. To leave.
They don't want to leave. They were forced to leave. Yes, Europe or anywhere in the world. I'm not even blaming Europe. Look at the Arab countries. These people are fleeing from Arab. No Arab country has offered them refuge. In fact, when they go there, they are actually treated in a terrible way. So let's talk about Europe because they are now coming to Europe as a better place to live in. All right, but they don't want to be there forever. They want to go back to their homes. I salute Germany for what they've done. Honestly, Chancellor Merkel deserves all the respect. She just couldn't take it and went out bravely and spoke out. But let me come back to what these people want. I am one of them. Look, because I'm here a professional person, but I'd love to go back and help in building my own country. I can't even step foot in there because there is a death warranty on me from the ISIL people themselves. I'm being accused as a person who's been against religion just because I was against these people. So if I step foot there, I'm killed, all right? So I'm just talking about this is it. This is how things are in these places. These people want to go back to their country. What the West can do is look at the roots of this issue. Why did this happen? Talk about Libya, for example. Now, there was a talk in the Dublin agreement that there will be all these immigrants from the Mediterranean should be divided in Europe. And then people said, no, this shouldn't happen. How would you take the burden? I don't want to go into this, but you know it all, basically.
Yes.
Now, I was amazed. Honestly, I was amazed hearing that this discussion was going on in the EU headquarters. instead of looking at why this happened, they are trying to treat the end of it rather than the roots of this issue.
Yes, but the only thing is, Fatima, if you're among those 800,000 people who are trying to flee, all you want is some food, a roof over your head, and to live a safe life. So in the short term, that has to be dealt with. Talk to me then about the long term. What do you see as being the root cause of the problem? What needs to be sorted out? What is it?
Yeah, I tell you what. First of all, as an example, I always come back to Libya, but it's the same thing. I'm not trying to isolate
use
this
it as an
that.
example. That's okay.
Yeah. Libya's borders are completely open for anybody to come in. In fact, there's a lot of corruption nowadays because of the confusion and the mess, and there's nobody ruling anything, basically. It's all mess.
Free for all.
Yeah. But the borders where these people come from are guarded borders. I'm talking airports, seaports and land ports, basically wherever they come through. So those who are coming on planes from Turkey, coming on planes from any country, they have been already checked in the borders before they boarded those planes. Those who come on ships as well, those who come through the borders in I'm talking African borders, Mali, all these countries. So it's there where the root of the evil starts, because it's actually a network. It's a mafia network, basically. It's already from that place sending these people, promising them a better life in Europe, knowing that somebody in Libya is going to have them, treat them worse than slaves, and then pack them in one boat that they know it's going to sink, and they want them to sink because they don't want them to tell on them. And those who survive and reach the other end in Italy or whatever, there's somebody else waiting for them there, having got some money from somewhere, from whatever share they divided it, to look after them in any sort of, if this is what's happening. So start from there. Who is sending these people? Who is giving them the promise? Why these people get on board on a plane to reach a country like Libya where there's no control? All right? This is what has to be done. And the connection between governments is not a difficult thing. It can be done. So the traffickers, you're saying, are profiting from this. I want to take a short break. Fatima Hamrouche is with us on Late Lunch. If you care to comment, 1850 715 958 or 53958 by text. Fatima, you mentioned the trafficking and the control at the borders being one thing, and you're saying clearly that people want to stay in their countries and feel safe. You have IS on the other hand, threatening to murder people. That's the reality of it. Why? This is a question I have for you. Where are the United States and the Allied forces who went into Afghanistan, who went into Iraq, and look what happened in there as well? Where are they? If you Google Hillary Clinton's talk, she has said it clearly that they have created them. She said it in the American Congress, speaking clearly that we created them. In these three words, we created them. Now, in the fight with the Russian between America and Russia, they created Al-Qaeda and they got stuck with it. And now I believe ISIL is the child born to Al-Qaeda. It's another extra level of atrocities. Believe me, or you know it yourself, I don't have to even, what they're doing. Do you think it's serving Muslims? There's no way. They're actually the first victims to these people are the Muslims, those who they catch and slaughter or treat as slaves are their direct victims, and the other indirect victims are those people who are fleeing that fate. All right, so it's the Muslims and Arabs who are the first victims of these people. So should get back to the Allied forces and the states who created so many problems in this world historically, should they, or would you welcome them going in to try and take on IS, Islamic State? Can they do it? Should they do it? No, I don't agree with that as well. Don't take me wrong here, but look at any country where they stepped foot in, what fate it ended by. Look at Iraq. There is no Iraq now. So what do? Do you just let IS march on, create this caliphate? What happens then? No, see, I believe the intelligence is very well aware of how to get these. You see, there was one person, the person who was accused of killing Chris Stevens or having had a part in killing Chris Stevens in Libya. He's the American ambassador.
Yes.
A special force from the United States coming from, just came in, got the man from the middle of the road in Libya and took him to the United States.
The man who killed?
The man who had I think either killed him or had a strong hand in killing Chris Stevens, but they're not sure yet. But it is one of those. So, I mean, if they want to get to the people who are responsible on any of this, they can get to them directly, one by one.
Without going in with land forces en masse or anything like that, or carrying out blanket bombing where innocent people are killed.
Well, look, Launa, let me talk about blanket bombing and all that. You remember when the attack was done against Gaddafi in 2011, Gaddafi's forces, and the accusations of rape and bringing mercenaries and whatever. None of these excuses that were taken by the United Nations to wage those NATO's attacks on Libya turned to be true. There were no mass rapes, and I tell you for sure, no mass rapes. There were no mercenaries from Gaddafi brought to Libya. None. There were some who were guarding him, but there were special forces guarding him. And the third excuse that the forces were coming to wipe off the east of the country turned to be untrue. So people no longer want any intervention from any international community. What we want is hold your harm from us. Just hold your arm from us. These countries who are sending us all these terrorists, stop them sending us the terrorists. We can deal with our own. And that's what we want. But when they pour into the country and we have no way to control them, and when they come in, by the way, when they come into the country, they get recognized that they are terrorists and they can't leave the country anymore. So what's happening? We are a pool or the wasteland for the terrorists. They're all coming into our land.
So the people we hear about, especially in Britain, who are radicalised and make their way to the Middle East, that must stop.
That should stop. They know who they are. I tell you one thing. I'm not going to mention a name, but the mayor of Tripoli, of my city, my capital, was a man who is Irish. He actually lived here in Ireland for years and years, and he's got Irish-Libyan citizenship, okay? And then he went into the revolution. He turned to be one of the, I wouldn't call it terrorists, but he's one of those who have extremists, basically. He helped in sending arms and military men or young men fighting in Syria. And he also formed a brigade in Syria. And then he became the mayor of Tripoli. Now he's been taken out as a mayor. Ireland knows about this man.
So that can be done on this side.
That's an example.
Yes, it's just one example, and that can be done. We have to help the people who are massed on the borders. I know they want to go home and they'll want to go back to their homelands, but surely we've been making appeals. We've mentioned it all over. It's all over TV, radio, all over the place at the minute. Help these people, take them in. That has to be done.
That has to be done. You're right.
In the short term.
Of course. Now, there are two types of immigrants. There are the ones who are fleeing death and horror, and there are ones who are looking for a better life. I'm talking about the Africans. And there are others who are intermingled in these, who are terrorists, who are probably going to make some terrorist stuff on the European land. So that has to be, and I know intelligence is well able to separate any of these.
So you can understand why countries have reservations as well when
yes,
you
indeed.
mention that mix also.
Yeah.
Fatima, I have to leave it there for today. I thank you for joining me. We will come back to this, I promise you, but please God, the situation is addressed sooner rather than later from all the aspects you mentioned there.
Thank you very much.
Not at
Thanks
all.
for inviting.